Hello everyone and welcome to Fuse Room. I'm Alberto. There's people here that have been watching these introduction for like 15 minutes, but it's a live stream. So for a lot of people out there here, you're watching these from the future. Now this is a recorded video, but we're having a lot of fun and we're gonna cover Acustica Audio Camel. It's a plugin suite that sort of like encompasses Calrec and Trident equalizers and compressors, sort of, and preamplifiers, of course. So it's mainly preamps, EQs, and dynamic processors in the form of compressors and limiters. There's a couple twists, as usual, as Acoustic Audio likes to do it. We ran a sort of a poll, nothing too official, but Camel came up front as first, in first position, because a lot, it got the most votes. So I had never used Camel. I had friends and colleagues who told me that it was a cool plugin suite to use, but I have never used it. So what I did is this. I fired up Nuendo 12, which we're gonna see in a second, and I took a session that I tracked in 2008. I think it was either 8 or 9. I tracked it. It's the first band I've ever produced and recorded, I gotta say. And I remember exactly the whole setup. It was recorded with nothing too fancy, but it's a session that doesn't sound too bad until you start mixing it. And I already said this a couple times in the past. It's the session that really bites your butt when you least expect it, because it doesn't sound bad. It sounds fine. It sounds pretty good when you listen to it for a long time. But then, after that sustained period of time, you start mixing it and nothing kind of works. And I'm gonna point out why and how to fix it. But the getaway is, if Camel is even half the plugin people say it is in terms of quality, we are gonna find out through this session. I guarantee you that. It's like Trident would be a good sound to pass this song through, because it's, it's a sort of a British nice mixture. I don't think it's full SSL kind of sounding. It's a little bit more relaxed, but it's very prestigious in a way, and it's done a lot of famous recordings. A lot of albums that we love were tracked through Trident consoles, which, go read the story, actually started off as we are building our own console. They made the A range and then they made the B range because they got some commission work to do this console for other studios. So Acoustic Audio sampled some of these B range stuff and then some Calrec. Calrec is a nice company, super famous again in the console sort of environment. They are also very renowned in the field of post-production. A lot of consoles in the Calrec hands of expertise are now being used for a lot of the live shows and reality and music stuff. Things you see on TV have a lot of prestigious Calrec consoles as well. So they are based off Hebden Bridge, I think, which you should visit because it's a fantastic town. It's in between some of the hills. There's a lot of green around. And once you get to the bridge, on the right, if I remember right, there's this mill area. I think it used to be a mill or something, like sort of an historical building there in which Calrec is there. And there's a lot of cool buildings. There's this sort of river and stuff. And I think they're still there. They should be there. It's near Leeds. A lot of towns have a lot of weird names, sort of like an elvish kind of name, some of them. I love the place. It's in between Manchester and Leeds. Anyway, they made some iconic EQs like Trident. And again, Acustica sampled that. So we're gonna take this session, try it out, find out what works and what not. And so why not? Let's dive in. So this is Nuendo 12 as promised, and these are my tracks. Now, what you see here is a bunch of colored stuff. There's brown, which is for drums. There's orange, which is for guitars. There's purple bass. I heard somebody say that because you know that I like magenta or purple for bass. There's acoustic guitars in cyan, and there's purple for synth pad, and then the vocals are these gold sort of thing. The difference between this session and some of the old stuff I've done is that I went ahead and sort of started mixing this session. What do I mean by this? I mean something, let me double check that something here needs to be turned off, right? I have never used Camel, ever. So the reason why I needed to do this is that I had no idea how it sounded. No idea. So what I did, I took this session and I sort of rebalanced and reworked it. I told you it's my nemesis session. It's one of the most difficult things to mix in my opinion, just because it sounds pretty good, but then it, you know, as I said, it bites you in the rear. And we're gonna use Camel here, but we're also gonna take a look at the things that I've dialed. I found out some combinations that I think you will love, and this sort of pre-mixing that I've done, or like sort of like going ahead and doing it, which I did really, trust me, yesterday evening and yesterday night, is gonna be beneficial to you because a lot of the settings and things I've dialed in are really worth exploring and sort of like freezing in time, because they're good combinations of releases or attacks or presets that I've taken care to save as well. So let's first take a look at what Camel is. I don't even want to listen to the song first. I want to show you what Camel is. So we got Camel Comp ZL, which is the zero latency, which we're not going to use, EQ, preamp, and the different versions. The Camel normal one, which is just the name Camel as usually done by Acustica Audio, is the channel strip. Now, I haven't used the channel strip plugin at all in this mix, but you're free to do it. It's a combination of preamps, it's a combination of EQs, and a combination of compressors. It's just basically, I think in this case, everything that Camel has to offer is in this channel strip. Sometimes, I think a couple times, I've seen Acustica do channel strips of these plugins that are not as complete as the sum of the different components would be. But in this case, it looks to me as if this is pretty, complete. But we're not gonna use this. We're just gonna move on to Camel Pre, right? Just because it's the easiest one to sort of do. Then we're gonna do Camel EQ. And this is just my brief explanation of it. It's a full disclosure. We're gonna have so much time to talk about this stuff. So here, right on. My alignment skills are insane these days. I have no idea why. I've become a pixel perfect sort of audio engineer. But there's maybe one pixel more on the bottom. Stop talking about that. So the preamp's pretty straightforward, as in a lot of acoustic audio plugins. You got off, you got line, you got custom, and you got microphone. Usual input, trim, and output. The output being linear, as far as I can tell, and the input being actually how you drive the preamplifiers. These knobs are super cool to see, like to have in a virtual space, but I hate these knobs. In real life, I hate them. I wouldn't even use them for, bare bone electrical equipment, whatever, in my basement, whatever. But here on interface, it really looks fantastic. When I saw it, I was like, oh my God, the one where you can see the screw, which with the years, it tends to unscrew itself just because of how it's made. I don't know if you've ever had stuff that had these knobs, just replace them because I don't like them. Anyway, the line is a group of 16 channels coming from a Trident B range. So this is gold, people. If this works half the way, again, as they say they do, a Trident B console with 16 sampled preamplifiers is the ticket. It's not too tight as the SSL. It's not too poetic like the Neve. It's not too punchy as the API. It's just got these very classic three-dimensional behavior that still sound to me very modern. A lot of the prog rock or rock fusion projects, the cool stuff that's gotta have an expensive sound, like a Soldano sort of like, guitar amp, sounds to me appropriate with Trident stuff. So we got these channels, then we got the microphones, which should be, again, if I'm not mistaken, from the B range again, but just obviously the microphone impedance. And then we got custom, which I hope I can remember. It should be that the one is from the Calrec compressor, two is from, actually maybe one is the B range, two is the stereo from the B range, maybe it's the mix bus, and then we got the two compressors, maybe Calrec and Trident. So they're taken from different units, or maybe EQs, but the manual says it all. Usually, I mean, we don't need to know exactly what they are. You try them until they sound good. But this is the only thing I'm kind of cloudy because, again, I haven't used it. But I think these come from the single units that we have here as well. Now, the EQ has pretty much a similar sort of line, you know, mic and custom range. And so you can dial in the preamplifiers from the EQ as well. And you can do that also in the compressor, but you only have a limited choice of preamps, which I'm thinking might come from comp 1 maybe being the Calrec and 2 being the 80 watt, the comp 2, the Trident, the CB 20, no, maybe 9146 should be. I really have no idea. I haven't seen these units in my life ever, and I've never worked with them like in real life, you know, on analog stuff. So I would imagine one would be that and two would be the other one. Really nice compressor as well. I'm gonna come to it in a second. But again, all of the line, mic and custom are here. The important stuff in the EQ, it's all explained. High frequencies, high mids, low mids. There's nothing scary about that. Is that when you turn on A, you get Calrec EQs. And when you go to B, you get to Trident B range. So it's kind of easy to remember because when you see B, it's Trident B range and A is Calrec. That's the only thing I would like to point out. Obviously the interface is different. So, but if you've used one EQ, this is just exactly one EQ. Only remember that BD is a wider bell and it's broad, and NW stands for narrow. So that is the tighter, right, a bell. SH stands for shelf, PK, peak, so it's a bell. Pretty much nothing else. HP for high pass, all this stuff. There's really nothing. Let me check the Trident's pretty much the same thing. We got more limited range of frequencies. There's a more, like the high pass is either on or off at 50, but it's pretty much there. Maybe the compressor is the one that's more complicated because you have comp 1 and comp 2. And these are the comp 1 with the limiter 1 are coming from a Calrec, the 1656 it should be. And this became famous. I saw it once, but it was off. I've never used it. It was on a shelf in a used gear market. And, you know, it's a Vintage King thing. And this is famous for broadcast, as far as I remember, because it's fairly not too transparent, but kind of controllable. And the comp 2 is actually the CB, what is it, like a 91, as I said, 46. Again, I might be wrong with the numbers. This is more of a colored compressor. So the ratios, you know, they're kind of different because you have 235. You can't really say it's a 33609, but I think it's op-amp based or IC based, and it's got Landau transformers maybe. So there should be fairly tight, but not too based stuff, you know, not too slow, not too soaky. Very famous, I think, I liked it for the slow attacks and sometimes even the slow releases, like how it floats. So Acustica added two things, which is the super comp and the super limiter. And you see that the super comp also comes, but also comp 1 have these red label, the 0.05. Once you step into the red label, the behavior and the envelope timing are turning into what Jade is. And I think this is a good move that Acustica did, because with Jade, they kind of got, I wouldn't say lucky, but they, you know, they did a lot of work, let's put it that way, and they really got some kind of envelope figure that kind of worked and it's kind of unique somehow. So they put this in a lot more products than just Jade. I think Coffee has it as well, or Cream, I don't remember, but there's this Jade thing coming around. Sometimes they put it in there. And this is one of these cases. You got Super Comp, Super Limiter, which have these different sort of behaviors. And if you go from, from super comp to comp 2 and comp 1, you see the ratios are changing. So this is more of a custom thing. I've used these as well. Super limiter has obviously no ratio. It's kind of an analog limiter. But that's it. Like, if we had to stop at what these plugins are, my experience was when I fired them up, the interface is pretty unique, but there is really nothing to worry about. It's everything we've seen everywhere. There's a schmod filter for high pass. There's, dry wet mix. The meter is kind of weird, but they got these LED on top, which I usually look at, not the nice analog rotating one. That's it. These are the 3 plugins. So we're just gonna use these 3 for the whole of the mix, like all of it. And I put these on a dummy track because then I can turn them off, like really disable them, so we don't have to worry about it. And I think word of advice in this session, before we start in Nuendo, if some people are having issues or whatever with how heavy the session is, I have turned on ASIO guard, which I usually call Asgard, because it sounds like Asgard. ASIO guard is a secondary buffer that Nuendo and Cubase put in, which has a slower, more relaxed sort of like temperament against the CPU. So as you can see on the top, I'm filling up my buffer for the ASIO guard and the peak real time stays lower. So if you're not recording and you're not doing automation on non-record enabled tracks, you're fine. So you're good. You can turn it on and it works with Acustica plugins. Without ASIO guard, I wouldn't be able to run this session at 512 of buffer size. I would probably need to go to 1024. But here I can stay at 512 and it works. And the session is as such. We have snare, kick snare, snares, intro snares, hi-hat, 3 toms, sampled cymbals, squish, which we're not using, overheads and room. We have guitars, tons of guitars, and we got bass, and we got acoustic guitar, we got a synth pad, and we got lead vocals. Then these yellow people here are chiclets, VCAs, that are controlling the groups. The blue, light blue ones are all of the effects. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 delays and 4 reverbs. And I'm gonna show you why I did that, and they're only Lemon and Ebony, with sometimes a Steinberg limiter being used here, and that's it. Camel sometimes to shape the reverb and delays. Then we got the green channels, where the groups are the basses, all drums, all bass, all guitars, all acoustic guitars, all keys, all synths and stuff, which we don't even need all synths actually here. We could cut it out. And then the vocals and the backing vocals. So these, they're not existing because there's no backing vocals. Then we got mix, which is my mix bus. Then we got tape, which is my second mix bus in series. And then we got loud, and then we go to print. So these green, yellow, orange are all one bus. They go one into the other. Mix goes to tape, tape goes to loud, and loud goes to print. So we're not gonna use this, but I thought you should see it. And we're doing this because that's my template. That's how it's set up. So in here, on the mix bus, I have used MSCD, which is free from Voxengo, to encode, right? Let me see this, to decode and encode stuff to mid-side. So the first one here, I just want to make sure that this is set right, now that I've set it up, encodes audio to mid-side, right? And why am I doing this? Because in the middle here, I have a hardware insert that goes to, believe it or not, a pair of Calrec EQs that I got built from somebody else through some half DIY project and stuff that I thought I should use, but I wouldn't use it on a mix bus. But I gotta say, it's kind of nice, and it's 2 channels of what would have been a 1549. The 1549 is a Polar EQ console. Polar is a studio in Stockholm, which is still active and still has, I think, that Polar console that Calrec built them. and it's called Polar Studios, and that's why the console's a Polar. I don't know how many they made, not many, but that one's probably the most iconic, and had these 1549 console EQs. So I've used that, we're gonna compare it, but the cool thing is I've dialed in this also on Camel. So we can take a look at it later, because this is the mid and the side, and it's pretty much the same stuff, and then gets decoded, right? Exactly, I just wanted to double check, into stereo. So it goes into mid side, gets processed by 2 channels because it's not step, and then it goes back to stereo channels. So this is our mix bus, we're gonna keep it on, we're gonna compare later, or maybe turn it off, I don't know. But let's listen to the song the way it should sound. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna take a quick link here, and we're gonna bypass all of the, not the effects, I wouldn't do it, but I'm gonna put the all effects down here. And then we're going to take the vocals and bypass all of its inserts. And then we're gonna take the groups here, drums and guitars, and we're gonna bypass the effects that I've done. Effectively having what we've done in the terms of tracking the session, right? So how does this sound? Let's hear it, because I'm scared to death about this session. So I'm gonna press play, and then we're gonna comment on how the song works. So let me see, everything should be fine. Oh, I have my master at +12. Definitely don't wanna do it. So I'm gonna press play, and we're gonna listen to it up until probably second verse or something.
Blue jeans, your 6 strings on my back. You kiss my head, so say goodbye. What are the methods of love? Matter, what kind of matters? Disappears, and I hold my tongue. Say my soul. You believe in life and fall and cool, and you know in every single step touches my, you know. What are the methods of love?
All right, you heard it. So before we get into mixing this thing, and actually looking at what I've done yesterday evening when I was just getting comfortable with Camel, I'll talk about this session, but before we do I just cannot avoid pointing out that if we're doing this and we're here having this super fun live stream, I'm having a lot of fun doing it and you can tell, it's because of my patrons. So I just would like to spend 10 seconds to remind you that if this is all possible, is because there's almost 40 people now that are actively donating or contributing financially to the work I do, but most importantly, my assistant Angie does for editing the videos that you see on my channel. Now, there's a lot more videos, like hours of videos, and I would say maybe dozens of hours available exclusively to people who subscribe. And also there's all sorts of comparison sessions, WAV files to download, hardware versus software shootouts done with WAV files and comparisons, and we have a private Discord. So think about the fact, if you can, or if you want to help out other people, which in the future might be watching this video, or others, just consider that, because it's 9 euros per month. It's 9 euros per month. And you get access 24/7 to a music faculty on the internet that, in my opinion, does not exist yet. I hope somebody makes it, because that would be great for music education. But so far, I'm very happy with what we've done. And end of my advertisement, but it's only in respect of the people who are here. A lot of them are watching this stream now, who actively contribute to the project, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. It's also a lot of fun, but the way I can do it kind of in a relaxed way and taking our time is because of these people. So thank you very much for all of your support. Let's get mixing this. Before we do it, I want to talk about all of the instruments, because this is educational. So the drums, this was tracked in 2008 or 9 in a single room, and we did all of the instruments one at the time. Issue number 1. I think only bass and drums played together, but guitars and singer and acoustic guitars and synths, which is just one track, were played in overdubs. Issue number 1, if you can, please never do one track at a time unless it's a boring pop project, but if it's rock music or jazz or whatever, you need people to play together, because it will not gel, and this is one of the issues that this session has. The second problem is I didn't have a great room and a lot of mics for recording. So we tracked analog drums with mics and stuff through some TL Audio preamps borrowed and owned by me, like Ivory and other stuff. And then we blended them in with samples. I despise these samples. I hate them. The kick sample that got blended with the real drum, with the real kick drum, I don't like. I could replace, but we're not gonna do it. We're gonna use Camel, and we're gonna make sure it works. So if Camel works and saves me and makes a good mix out of this, we're gonna be happy, and Acoustic Audio has done a great job, because if something works on this session, I guarantee you, it's a miracle. And it doesn't sound bad. You might be thinking, doesn't sound bad. It doesn't sound bad. It sounds pretty good, but it's never gonna get out of its average good. I guarantee you that, but we're gonna try. The bass is done DI into a fake amp. I think it was done through, again, an Ivory, and then we used maybe SansAmp to fake the amplifier, so it's a bass plug-in amp, whatever, maybe GTR. It's not a real amp, and so that's problem number 3 already. Guitars were done through a nice DI into a 11, I think, a DigiDesign 11 at the time. Sounds great, but it locks you out of a lot of possibilities, and the guitars alone are I'm gonna teach you how to fight this kind of sound and to recognize that this sound is an issue. It sounds beautiful, but it's not real. It just doesn't have the meat into it to become blended with the song. So I don't dislike the guitar sound, but I hate, as a mixing engineer, how, I wouldn't say lifeless, is there's something I can tell in the tracks that will not allow me to make a super amazing kind of realistic record out of it. They're good, but they're limited to that good level. They're gonna be hard to make better. Again, I hope Camel will do it. The acoustic guitars are fine. They're a guitar DI. As much as I hate guitar DIs for acoustics, they're not bad. We double tracked those. That was the good thing I did, right? The synth pad is just one track, and the vocals actually real nice. The singer, this band was called Banjo, and this song's called Matters of Love. I love the whole record. It was a lot of fun to do, and you know, the singer, everybody's great, the band's great. They didn't have anything bad to do with this. It's just how I tracked it, you know, years ago. We only ran one vocal track, no overdubs, no backing vocals. That is issue number 5 or 6 or whatever. Do not do that. Always make sure you have doubles. Always make sure you have backing vocals to sustain the choruses, all that sort of stuff. So that's super, super important. What else? Like I've made pretty sure that I don't like how it was tracked. So now we can, I don't know. Like, what do we want to do? You know, I already criticized these as much as possible. Right, there's a lot more worse than you thought. So we added some tracks that we're not gonna use. I took a software compressor and I recorded something that I called the squish. And this is what I meant by squish. I am not gonna use this track because it just adds nothing to the equation. So I don't like it. It's just something from our real room into Sans amp, I think. It sounds to me as it's like a guitar amp plugin, something like that. So where would I start here? I say I should start from probably the drums, which I haven't touched that much. But before I venture into the drums themselves, I want to show you what I've done with Camel in terms of drums bus. So here we go with the fun. The drums bus has 2 plugins right off the bat. So I'm not using any channel EQ and compression yet. I went on and dialed in one EQ going into one compressor. And I even saved these 2 presets because I really, really like them. So I'm gonna bypass them. I'm gonna press play on just the drums. And we're gonna listen to the second verse, I think, something like that. And we're gonna turn on the first insert, which is the EQ, on and off, so we can compare what it sounds like. When I tried these out, and I'm gonna make it a little bit louder for you because I'm thinking this is kind of soft right now. I think I'm probably gonna go maybe +6 on you because I'm really mixing at low level in the session. So this is not, I didn't want to do it from the get-go because I didn't want to have you think that I'm really, really loud in here or really, really quiet. The tracks themselves are very in a good spot of like maybe from -18 to -14, -12, not more than that. And this is not because I believe in the acoustic audio church of the -18. I mostly don't care, but it's because to mix this song to a level where it sounds appropriate as a record, I need a lot of push. And if I start mixing things very loud or my tracks are peaking, this is gonna be even worse than in normal life. So I'm gonna turn you on. I have no idea how loud this is. Probably I'm giving you a +6 or something. I don't know. I'm gonna give you a +6 to myself as well, and we're gonna listen to it again. What I'm doing here is a 25K low pass, and I have no high pass, and I'm cranking 10K and then 5.6, and then I'm taking away the 1.4 and I'm cranking 120. So I'm gonna save this preset and while it's on, I'm gonna move the knobs so you really hear the weight. But before, I want you to listen to the before and after, because look at it, it's a lot. Like, look at the knobs. You know, they're like 3 o'clock, almost 2 o'clock. But when I turn it on, it's not that different, but it's a lot better. It's demasked somehow. So let's try it again. I hate the nosiness of the snare in the overheads and stuff. So this one already solves it and makes the thing a lot more realistic. And I like how punchy the lows are, but the highs are not that punchy. I think the reason for this is that the Calrec EQ, because I have one here, which uses a pair of old op amps for the lows and was done a little bit different than some projects you find out. And now they're kind of old, so they don't crank a lot of lows in the extremes, but they're very bubbly in the lows. I don't know if you know what I mean. They bubble up to you. Like, the lows are very fast. They're very round and they hit you very fast, but the transients in the highs are not that fast. They're still modern, but they're not that accentuated. So it kind of creates this modern vibe for maybe the lows, like a sort of an API push, but the highs are more in between the Neve and SSLs. It doesn't make any sense to say that, but let's point out where I'm pushing stuff around. So I'm gonna start from the lows, then medium frequencies, and then I'm gonna go medium frequencies and then extreme highs, just to give you an idea of why I was pushing what I was pushing. Here the 60. 60s are insanely heartwarming. This knob alone is really good. It almost reminds me of a Helios lows. It sounds like an high pass. If you do this 60 and go negative, you're gonna cut very musically the lows of the track without, imparting weird sounds. It's insanely good. So remember, this 60 is a great high pass. I haven't used it that way. Here I wanted a 120. It just lifted so much. Real good. Now there's a little bit of a box in the kick. I still like this. Then I went to remove the 1.4, and here's why. Right? Now I'm cranking up a lot these knobs. So when I go back, it will always sound like I'm a genius, because you're so being fed with bad sounding frequencies that when I go back to even flat, you're gonna go like, well, this guy's a genius. Like this frequency is just, that's exactly the value he had to set up. It's because I'm feeding you a lot of bad things before. That's why I did the before and after at the start, which I told you was subtle, right? I did that because I'm a honest person. If I were just to crank things badly and then bring them back, any EQ is gonna sound fine, because you're being thrown so much bad sound that once I go back to the average it was, it's still gonna sound better to you. Obviously, we're all human beings, I think. There's some machines maybe among you, but mostly we're human beings. So I'm now emphasizing them to give you an idea of what I wanted to do, because it's a pre-made setting, so I have to explain that. 5.6. And here I was really amazed by how just the hi-hat comes out, like the cymbals, and a little bit of the air of the snare, but nothing else comes up, and it reminded me of some MCI console modules that I had, which were really good at doing that, but I like this one better because the MCIs were always a bit too vintagey. I can't really point my finger on it, but put my finger on it, but it was like, this one I like better. It's a little bit more sterile, you know, in a good way. So this one was the 5.6 and then the 10K. So that's the whole kit. And this one alone is a great Trident demonstration, like right off. Let's go back to the A, which was the settings I had before and after. That's all I needed. I just wanted to have some air, some clean visual on the drums, and I really like this. Then I don't remember why, but I dialed in some compression. Oh, I remember why. Something I want to do always in this kind of rock, sort of mainstreamy rock stuff, is something I've learned from country music, to use some sort of fat compressor on, you know, like an 1176 pair or 1178, something like that. Duckings are great at that on the drum bus. As savage as that might sound, is one of the reasons why the drums in pop radio rocks kind of sound that way. One of the reasons, not the only reason, obviously. So I wanted to get some 3 dB or something of compression just to get the peaks to sort of react. And I've tried this. I haven't really gone into the limiter. I went into compression too, but let's try it without and with. So I didn't do what I wanted to do, because when I stumbled upon compressor 2, which is a Trident compressor I've never used, this thing sounds super cool. It's doing 6 dB of compression on the snares, and it's just, you know, barely flinching. It's not pumping, it's great. One of the things that I remember I've took care in dialing and then I ended up really loving is, look at the attack. It's 35 milliseconds and the release is at around 100 or something. And then I dialed in something close to a 50 Hertz filter, and it's a 5:1. So what I think I like this compressor for is higher ratios and a lot of gain reduction, more than you would think. Think about twice as much, and slow attacks, like very slow attacks, and kind of okay releases, like on par with what you would use. I'm cranking up +6 makeup, and it just has that, it's more of a record now thing, right? So I think I haven't used the preamp because I've used the preamp from the console. I didn't feel like using that. We might try it, I don't know, probably, but I think I've used these on guitars as well. So I'm not gonna, you know, change it. I'm actually gonna save these to preset 1. And this is our bass. I'm gonna try before and after with these two EQ and compressor off and then on, because it's worth listening to how much the drums have changed with these two on the drum bus. Now it's a little bit louder, obviously, so we're getting some gain and stuff, but I think there's a sort of a cleansing factor. It clears the drums up, this combination, and it's not even track by track processing, it's just a drum bus processing. And has it solved my issue with the drum aspect? in part, yes, because it's made it possible for the drums to get out of that average, flat out, mid frequencies, sampled bass library sort of thing, which is, again, it's real drums plus samples. To me, however, it still sounds very boring. I don't know. So this one was really, really good. I don't think I've done anything else anywhere except for a guitar bass and the vocals. So let's take a listen to what I've done here with guitars. I don't even remember what, okay, compression. So here I went for nothing, maybe compressor off. We're gonna dial it in maybe later for some reason. Maybe that's only preamp that I've dialed in. I'm curious to listen if there's any difference here in these stuff. I can't really tell if it's a placebo thing or not, but we're gonna keep these here because I think I put it on preamp 1 and then I tried stuff out and then it didn't work for some reason. The curious thing here is that, yeah, well, no, this should be off somehow. Well, it's good to know because I'm gonna use, for sure, I'm gonna use a compressor here on the bass. But all right, let's go over this. So I didn't use these. Okay, vocals. Vocals are something else that I've processed that I have to show you how first. The vocals are very dynamic. They weren't tracked through a lot of compression and stuff. It's just the way they were sung is real good. Like vocal microphone technique is fine, but some parts were too loud. So what I did here was I've taken the parts that were too loud and I've actually trimmed them right off the bat here, which is like 18 dBs or something. There's a function that I really like in Nuendo and Cubase, which is it should be this one. Yes, you can turn on the mouse wheel for event, volume, and fades. So when I turn it on, I can use my mouse wheel to really just select this and do this, which I really like. So I'm gonna undo it just because for some reason, and I think it's gonna sound fine anyway. It doesn't, you know, we're gonna get compressed. But this function, remember to deactivate it just so you don't click over stuff. You see what I've done here. Sometimes I've taken loud stuff and I've just tamed it down because it was different. So the vocals are the first thing I wanted to process. And I went through Camel EQ and 2 compressors, Camel comps. And this one was also very, very good, something that I liked a lot. So I want to try and put these all on the screen. So we have, we have the insert 1 Camel EQ, insert 2 Camel comp, and insert 3 Camel comp again. But the first compressor is actually limiter 1 and the other one is super comp. So what I want to do is listen to just the vocals, just these people here, and probably the verse is really sort of symptomatic. I want to hear how they sounded without and with. I'm gonna turn down your volume just to make sure you're not, you know, blasting off. Here it's more of a Calrec EQ. So let's try this.
I'm watching the end of days in my life, and I'm standing here.
So this part should be fine. I wanted to really grab the beginning of the verse here, right off the bat. This part's nice. Let's go.
I'm watching the end of days in my life, and I'm standing here for a long time, not strong than you. I've only my blue jeans, and 6 strings on my back.
So I really like the loudness of it and how it sounds, but I can hear in the low parts, I can tell we didn't use very good converters back then. Because the ch and the t you know, all the T's and C's and close to S, but not that much. They kind of have this twisty sound that I don't quite like. Maybe the tubes kind of didn't help there, but the S's are fantastic. I really like it. So, you know, you gotta live with a compromise. Now let's try the EQ in while he's singing.
I'm watching the end of days in my life, and I'm standing here for a long time, not strong than you. I've only my blue jeans, yeah, 6 strings on my back.
When he sings and 6 strings on my back,
6 strings on my,
this part,
yes,
we're gonna try. I know there's a difference in gain, that's why I tailored it down. I'm not using any pre's, but I'm cranking up some 10K, some whatever, what is it? Like I'm actually filtering a lot and then I'm boosting 10K, but I'm also boosting 2.3, 700. I'm gonna play with that, but let's try this part without the EQ and with. I did this in context, but it sounds really good by itself. It's just like it's taking a decision. And it doesn't sound vintage, and it doesn't sound too modern. It actually sounds pretty good for 80s, 90s rock. I gotta say, like, it's on point. I really love that era. A lot of people hate it. I love it. And I say, this is kind of getting there. And with Lemon and Ebony, it really sounded great. We're gonna listen to it in a second. So, before and after.
yeah, 6 strings on my back.
I hear some click. I'm not even gonna bother fixing. You know, it's a isotope kind of thing we should do.
Yeah, 6 strings on my back.
Without.
Yeah, 6 strings on my back.
It's silkier. It's more of a record thing. So even this one's gotten out of the demo part.
Yeah, 6 strings on my back. You kiss my head, so say goodbye.
I hear some resonating kind of stuff, but I'm gonna crank this and we're gonna listen to this beginning and I'm gonna let you hear what I did with the frequencies. I'm gonna again save A so I can mess up B and just go from lows to highs just so you hear what I wanted to bump. This is a great preset for vocals because it's 110 on a peak that's kind of getting the chest. It's a 700 thing that's getting accentuated because either they're too dry, the vocals, in music, and you need some real room in, or they're too roomy and you need the 700 back. So it's a voiceover almost kind of thing. So it's an important frequency. 700 on vocals is just like a crossover point. 2.3 telephone kilohertz, and the 10K obviously, or 8.5, or depends, it's something for the air. But I'm gonna go in order so that you listen to what I pushed up.
I'm watching the end of days in my life, and I'm standing here for a long time, not strong than you. I've only my blue jeans, yeah, 6 strings on my back. You kiss my head, so say goodbye. What are the methods?
Going back for the 10K.
I'm watching the end of days in my life, and I'm standing here for a long time.
Wow. All right. So I went for 10K low passing. It's kind of a lot. Like I was fearing, I gotta say, maybe I had headphones on here. So this one's something you want to check with headphones because there might be a lot of information coming from that but it's a peak, it's not a shelf. So that's probably why it works. How clean and like, what is the word I'm looking for? I don't know. How modern, right? This air is. I am cranking up a lot, and this is an MXL 900 microphone. What is it, like $50 into a TLA Ivory 5052 with EQ maybe on, compressor on, I don't remember, and that's it. Like into Pro Tools HD, whatever. I don't know if there's some tape emulation. I don't think I've used any. Couple of NS10s. That was my studio 13 years ago, and Man, this is great. I'm thinking I should cut 30K anyway, just to avoid, but it's sounding nice. But 10K was real vintage. I'm gonna go back and forth with off and 10.
I'm watching the end of days in my life, and I'm standing here for a long time, not strong than you. I've only my blue jeans, yeah, 6 strings on my back. You kiss my head and say goodbye.
It becomes sort of like a glossier, charmy, sort of like lollipop thick thing. For being 10K, it doesn't destroy the vocals. It's really forgiving in a way. And to me, because we can't really get the super high energy vibe out of the very high quality, like a Browner microphone or something like that, and neither the Fat Neumann Schoeps, something like that really has a lot of value to it. I'm thinking this vintage kind of vibe works. Also, the 2.3 has that obnoxious telephone part with a lot of like a narrow band, but it enforces the trend to really let that telephone part out. So I'm not gonna touch these because I kind of liked it. I'm gonna go back to A, which was the setup. I'm curious as to what the compressor was doing. Let's try it again, before and after.
I'm watching the end of days in my life, and I'm standing here for a long time, not strong than you. I've only my blue jeans, yeah, 6 strings on my back. You kiss my head and say goodbye. What are the methods of love?
And here is really where the Calrec value kicks in. Really, like obviously it's not doing anything in the first part, right? Why am I using a limiter here? Because there's a lot of dynamics. I mean, look at the waveform. I mean, it just builds up. Lorenzo, the singer, has a great microphone technique and has a lot of knowledge of how rusty and forward his vocals can be. He's got these sort of a Bryan Adams, old school kind of 80s, 90s kind of style that he loves. And the microphone's getting blasted by it, but we managed somehow to not destroy the take. Just maybe I was playing with the gain while he was singing. But this limiter is really broadcast worthy somehow because it pushes down so much and the vocals are, there. So I'm gonna try without and with. We gotta be patient in just rewinding and listening before and after because it's taking some time for the thing to develop. Just take a listen as to where the vocals really sort of loud and blasting without and with, like the very final parts.
Jeans, yeah, 6 strings on my back. You kiss my head and say goodbye. What are the methods of love? Jeans, yeah, 6 strings on my back. You kiss my head and say goodbye. What are the methods of love?
It's just insane, and you can tell there's a little bit of static noise. Beautiful. That's being pumped up. So point one, super fast attack, no preamp, the no filter whatsoever. I kind of tried the lows, but when I do this, I never dissect the low registry from the singer because it's gonna make the limiter be weird. Sometimes I use very cheap digital limiters. They work great. This one's got like, wow, like this is stylish somehow. So the limiter is there to prevent this compressor from being overly blown by blown to pieces by the vocals. So let's try it a little bit before, whereas there's this quiet part. I'm gonna go before and after.
I've only my blue jeans.
With?
I've only my blue jeans. Yeah, 6 strings on my back. You kiss my ass and say goodbye. What are the methods of love?
This is good. Let's try without and with this loud part, the final one.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye. What? You kiss my ass and say goodbye. What are the methods of love?
Man, it's got bolts, like it's angrier. It doesn't happen a lot of time. Like I have some compressors that I use that do this. I won't name names, but I made mental notes of the compressors that are capable of doing this, and I'm talking about hardware as well, to vocals. There's something in the harmonic content, something in the way this thing handles transients that makes the vocals a lot more aggressive, but nothing really changes that much. It feels like there's more lows, and then when I analyze it, there's not a lot more lows, but it feels heftier, it feels more complete. So, I mean, now I want to do before and after with nothing and then all three. Just one simple part.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye. You kiss my ass and say goodbye. What?
We're gaining a lot of gain, but you can hear how it's full, it's mature, it's full spectrum, and it's a little bit halo-y. I wouldn't say it feels like tape, but it might be the transformers or something like that. I know these Calrec should have Landau transformers, Lunal, whatever the name is. It's kind of thicker, right? And I mean, that's what this gear would do. So I've dialed in this stuff, but I've also dialed in some effects. I'm gonna talk about these very briefly, but these were dialed in just because the vocals are too dry. You're never gonna mix these if you're not giving the vocals the respect they're gonna have. This is the singer. Imagine this was John Bon Jovi, and you mix it last. Why would you do that? People are gonna listen to the song because it's him singing, first and foremost, and then because it's like, maybe in Spaceballs as well, that song. But that's how it works. Like, you know, it's the priority. Why do you mix it last? So I sort of designed some delays around it, and I went the lemon route. Trust me, lemon is not a lemon, but I prepared this joke maybe a week ago. But, and it was kind of okay. It's not that good. But anyway, it took me quite a while to find my favorite presets or stuff. I think I did, and I'm not gonna touch it. It's fairly simple to use. Just make sure you don't blast it because this thing might give you a heart attack after a while. But the first delay I've dialed in is, I'm gonna mute these others, is this delay LDV. So this is fairly long, and what I've used as well is I've used the compressor in Comp 1 mode and then an EQ to sort of design this delay. So let's hear what the delay does first, and then we'll hear it with compression and EQ.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye. What?
Well, that's not the insert we're looking for. That's this guy, delay LDV. I made this mistake because this bus, delay long, was the one I was using for guitars, and then I said I would really like this on vocals as well. So delay LDV is this one. And I've dialed in this D0, all right? And then I've dialed in an EQ afterwards. So I designed these from the vocals from the guitar delay. And what I did, which is a great thing to tell you, is I didn't want to share the delay long with the guitars and the vocal. I made one specifically for the vocals. So the delay sounds like this, and then I added an EQ.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye.
It's not too much, right? But then I designed it with the EQ, and just what did I do? I made it a little bit sort of heftier in the low mids? Oh, maybe more presence, just that.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye.
Right? So it's a little bit more, again, telephone-ish, sort of. But I also, you know, took out the 2.8, cranked it up at 330, so it's a lot of filtering, and a little bit more presence here in a 1.5. Really like this. And then I moved on to create a delay center, which I used for quite a lot of stuff. This is a great trick. It doesn't have to do with Camel, but it's a great trick. These I've learned from the people who've done this stuff. I'm running one delay at a 32nd of note in triplets, so it's fairly fast, centered into a dual delay. So it's a PCM 42. It should have been a 42. I don't remember. I think the original I saw it on was actually a 42, or maybe it was some clone of it. But you need one mono delay that goes into a stereo delay, and if you have two 42s, you can do it. And the second one has full pan stereo, 8 triplets and 0.2, the 2 dots, whatever, the 2 mod, I don't remember what it's called. This is the exact settings I went ahead and copied. And it sounds like this.
You kiss my head.
And it's an eventide kind of thing, I usually call it, but let's hear it before and after.
You kiss my head so sad.
That's a perfect spot. You kiss my head. We're gonna hear it 100 times. So without.
You kiss my head so say goodbye.
We got it very centered, very narrow, but very present with.
You kiss my head so say goodbye.
Right? It's a little bit more 3D somehow, and it smears the vocals a little bit. And I really love this, really love it. So I've called this trick back from the grave because I think it's very appropriate. A little bit vintage, sometimes too much, but for this song I think it's great. Then I have a reverb long, reverb short, and a parallel compression. So reverb long is this dude here. It's Ebony.
You kiss my head so say goodbye.
It's fairly long, for sure. There's an EQ, again, to sort of tailor the frequencies. I've completely carved 4K, completely pushed 16K. It's a really designed sort of reverb. Without, it would sound like this.
You kiss my head so say goodbye.
It's fairly clean, right? It sounds pretty good.
You kiss my.
Now it's obnoxious. But within the mix of the song, obviously, that's where you gotta listen to it. But just, there's only one limiter here, Steinberg limiter, because if you crank Ebony too much and it explodes on your woofers, I really risk damaging the speakers. I really don't like doing it. So that's why I put a limiter after every Ebony. That's a safety mechanism. Then we got a reverb short, which is this dude here.
You kiss my head so say good.
Love this. And this is just the history of rock reverbs, I think. It's pretty good, I gotta say. What's the trick here? It's a 400 early, pre-delay at second dot, and no decay. Sounds pretty good, I gotta say.
You kiss my head so say goodbye.
This would be a great snare splash as well. You know, when it splashes after the hit, sounds great. And then a lead vocals parallel, which finally is Camel again. So how does this sound by itself? Let's mute the direct and hear how the vocals sound in here.
You kiss my head so say goodbye. What are the methods of love?
That's a stabilizer. To me, it sounds a lot like the Fatso I have. It's got that, I can't really make a sound like, but it's cranked down at -24. Like it's not even compressing anymore. It's just a level down destroy thing. 10:1 fast, super fast release on super comp. So when it releases, it's got that energy back. It's 10, you know, sort of an LA2-ish super being, I don't know. But this is to support the main vocals, because the issue I was having is there's too much dynamic range. So if you notice at the beginning of the video, the vocals I had here had a volume like this much, at -16 or something like that. The reason for this is that there's a lot of parallel compression coming in. So I'm gonna bring it up and you're gonna hear how it sounds with the parallel compression.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye.
Hear that halo? This allows you to move down this knob, especially with the guitars.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye.
So say we have this level. Imagine we didn't have parallel compression.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye.
And with.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye.
This is super important for pop, rock vocals, vocals of any kind. Like, if you can tell that without it, there's some little valleys, these deeps, while he's singing, where the vocals getting sucked down in water, sucked down in water. It doesn't float that well. If your ears can pick that up, it means you know how to set parallel compression up. And it takes just a little bit of listening at low volumes. You're gonna hear when it's just, I can tell what he's singing, but even by itself in solo, it's obnoxious how it's about to fall down, about to fall down, about to fall down. I want it to fully sustain. In a virtual way, yeah, that's true, because it doesn't happen in real life, but you can do it with parallel compression when you mix. So these were all of the effects, and the vocals with everything sound like this.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye. What are the methods of love?
Remember, we started here.
You kiss my ass and say goodbye. What are the methods of love?
Right? So it would need automation. This is not a song you will ever do without automation. You need to move it, but it's a good setup to get started off on the right foot. And with the drums itself, I think that was where I kind of liked to get the things going. I'm gonna just set things up quickly. Everything I've done in terms of mixing so far is done. So from here on, we gotta do a quick rundown of the tracks I don't like and the priorities and assess them and say, okay, this is going there, right? So let's hear how the vocals sound with the drums, and then I'm gonna bring in the guitars, I think, just because I want some environment here. I'm gonna take second verse, because I need a lot more singing. And let's try drums and vocals, and then I'm gonna bring in, as I said, the guitars just to get a vibe for it, and then we're gonna maybe comment on the guitars.
Disappears and I hold my tongue. Say my soul. You believe in life and full and cool. And you know in every single step touches me, you know.
Waiting for the coda to go on. So we got almost a working environment, right? There's, as you noticed, there's some reverbs I've dialed in on the single guitars. Here on the oranges, there's a delay long for the long sort of lead guitar. There's tracks that are panned hard left have a delay right, and tracks that are panned hard right have a delay left. These are very simple. These are lemons. I like to say that. These are two lemons, and they are set. Just don't look at everything. Look at just the thing that is on. The second channel has a 32nd of a note in triplets. You've seen this trick. Set on ping pong, full left, and it just gives these tracks a little bit more of a bounce effect. Some of the guitars that are centered are borrowing the delay center from the vocals. And this is a great spot to listen to drums, guitars, and vocals without bass, because you're gonna get a vibe for the guitars when they're not sustaining enough, which is now we're gonna see where the song really fights against you to become fully mixed. This is where I'm gonna fail. I hope I won't, but this is where this is where it ends, people. Man, I love this stuff. Even if would get me fired from any gig from get-go. I mean, this is 13 years ago, people. Have some pity on me, right? But anyway, let's listen to the guitars that are playing here in the chorus, whatever, in this part, right? I can't seem to find any guitar playing here. They're so small. And I sort of like tuned the gain in. They're so low in volume, but the mass of them is going there. So let's find a spot here that might work. This is a great spot for the center guitar. I think it's this one. All right, so this guitar used to sound like this. Right? But the delay center sounds like this. Right? It just gives this guitar a little bit more of a three-dimensional factor. I've used this on another guitar here, G5, which plays here. And I've also used these on the snare, on the bottom part, actually on the whole snare. Okay, so without and with the snare. That's kind of good. What about the reverb on the drums? Let's do this sort of round of reverbs. So drums also inherit some reverbs here because they were fairly dry. So I'm gonna do a quick on and off. So without and with. Could be brighter, but there's no processing, so these I also like. And the chorus guitars, which play somewhere here, have these two delays. So one is right, one is left, and they have inverted delays. Right? So it helped me set up a system in which I feel I'm getting into the stage of this very dry tracking in which everybody was done one after the other and not playing together. So it's a miracle that it's kind of working. But now we're gonna use Camel EQ and then finally the compressor sometimes to really fine-tune the guitars. I don't know if I want to do the bass first. I'm actually probably not gonna do it. You know what? Because the problem with the guitars is they have a very dry and weak low registry. So I want to handle these a lot, like for real. Let me find a spot where they're playing more, maybe not the chorus though, maybe this part. And I'm gonna go drums and guitars. Just that. When you have very dull guitars like this that sound fine until you find out why is this song not really mixing itself as others, why is it not effortless? It might be that they are weak on the meat of the very high mids. So the substance there is a plug-in based substance. It's not a real amp. And that is an issue. So we're gonna try and take the life back into these guitars. And I've dialed in this one. Is it this one? It sounds fine by itself, right? So the vocals are singing. I'm also gonna keep the guitars with the vocals.
Disappears, and I hold my tongue. Say my
I don't need anything too surgical in terms of EQing, so I'm gonna go Trident just because it's such a powerful icon for it. I hope it works. I'm gonna start instantly by noticing that there's no 100 whatever here in the, or 200 in the low mids. I can't go that low. There's actually 2 times 1.4 because it was a 3-band, I'm assuming. So let's try 120.
Disappears, and I hold my tongue. Say my soul, you live a lie.
So number one issue. Now I've been in issues like this before, so it sounds like, yeah, all right, you fixed it. What's the problem? I guarantee you that if you track a song like this with guitars that sound like this, and then you spend some time preparing the sessions and maybe comping the takes and stuff, you will grow on this sound thinking that that is the guitar sound, that is the full spectrum of the guitar. One of the issues is you are not having enough P-low in the 100 Hertz, you don't have enough energy in the 7K, and you don't have enough bite in the 2 or whatever, 3 something. And these are all areas in which things usually you don't want to crank up too much. Like 7K on guitars is a last resort for a lot of people, but I tend to do it because I know that you gotta be bold, so you gotta do it. We could even do this on a bass, on the guitar bass. I'm not gonna do it, however. So I wanna try some line here. Maybe we're gonna use line 2. Let's try without and with. Can I turn it off or not? So I have to go off 2. Let's hear how the, you know, the preamps behave.
Disappears, and I hold my tongue. Say my soul, you live a life and full and cool. And you know you never sing a step touches my cue.
Custom one's nice. I'm listening to the one that sings to me. This is very poetic. That's for Giancarlo. I'm trying to listen to which one, if there's one that does it, sings to me. And it means that the guitar has to feel like I'm listening to a record. I'm not mixing a song. I don't know how to explain it. I listen to a lot of music in here. So it has to sound like I just pressed play to listen to a song. Custom one I really liked. I don't want to know who it is, which one it is, just who cares? Which one sings to me? Let's try all 4.
Disappears, and I hold my tongue. Say my soul, you live a life and full and cool. And you know you never sing a step touch.
So for some reason, Custom 4 doesn't follow the output. I might have spotted a bug. And I can't really compare it because it's too loud. However, I was kinda loving Custom 2. I gotta say, Custom 2 sounds fine, which is whatever, maybe B range?
Disappears, and I hold my tongue. Say my soul, you live a life and full and cool. And you know you never sing a step touches my cue.
Custom 1 also sounds nice. Maybe for this part has a little bit more bowls. I don't know. 2 sounds a little bit more wide, whatever. Let's try and crank this baby up at 7K. And I don't know, maybe we're gonna try 2.8. This is sort of a brilliance pack. Or maybe the 8 on the shelf. All right, let's try it.
Disappears, and I hold my tongue. Say my soul, you live a life and full and cool. And you know you never sing a step touches my cue.
Okay, I kinda like the 7 here. The 8, I don't even want to touch. The 50, I'm not going to touch. I'm not going to crank anything here. I don't know. Maybe we could try and go really wild on the 10K and then cut on 10 as well. Could work.
Disappears, and I hold my tongue. Say my soul. You live a life and fall.
Okay, cutting 10, boosting 10, kind of nice. Sometimes these EQs have pre-thought. These people weren't stupid, guys. They made this stuff when they were listening to things. So A is fine. Now I want to try B, in which I'm not cutting and I'm not boosting anything. But I'm gonna keep my band here on 8K. I have a feeling this thing might sound different, even if it's staying at 0. So it's kind of good, but I'm not cutting any highs, and I'm not boosting the shelf.
Disappears, and I hold my tongue. Say my soul. You live a life and fall and crawl, and you know you never sing a.
Personally, I will go with the one with the filter. I was maybe cutting too high, so I went down to 7.5 and I'm boosting 8. It's vintage, that's true, but it's kind of nice. Now, if it was covering the vocals, the lyrics a little bit, we might want to try and cut 5.6. This would be done very nicely on the Calrec, I know, because it's kind of more surgical, but let's try 5.6 to crank it up. And I want to hear the lyrics kind of be difficult to listen to, and then it might work if we just go a little bit down.
Disappears, and I hold my tongue. Say my soul. You live a life and fall and crawl, and you know you never sing a step.
I don't want to do it. I gain some, I lose some. So I'm not gonna touch it. I'm gonna leave it there. It's fine. So this guitar, I can't believe we did. I mean, this is insane. I told you. Who's singing somewhere else? Let's keep going and find out who's playing somewhere else. We have like the final part here. Let's do the guitars in the chorus now that we're fresh, right?
What are the methods so low?
You hear the difference? That's why the song doesn't want to work with you. That's what I said. Like this one's off the charts somewhere that it's not that appropriate. So I want to hear the transition here. How do I leave that part, that verse that really worked, to get into a part that doesn't?
What are the methods so low?
Here.
And I hold my tongue. Say my soul. You live a life and fall and crawl, and you know you never sing a step touches man, you know.
Okay. We got a solution. We gotta work with what we've got. So we need to not use automation yet. We're gonna work with the other guitars. There's one that does a sort of a fill in that needs to be worked out.
Touches man, you know.
I'm gonna copy what we had because I'm lazy, man.
Touches man, you know.
Already better. The worst part is that they were all tracked the same. I don't think we changed pickups that much. I was young and wild. But we're gonna use Camel Comp to sort of like make it sing a little bit better. It's just a simple part, but it needs to be sort of a little bit more compressed. So I will go maybe 2-to-1, it's fine. I'm trying to think before I act, because if I go by fiddling around, A, you don't know what I'm looking for, and B, I want to demonstrate to you that I have a sound in my head. It doesn't matter if I've tried Camel or not. The numbers and values are all the same. So what do I want to do? That's the question you have to ask. What's the priority here? That part of guitar does not sustain enough. It comes in, it's nice, but it's not pillowy enough. So it doesn't need a lot of attack. It doesn't need faster releases or something. It just needs a little bit more help to be flattened down. So let's try this. Okay, keep going. Works. I'm not gonna touch it. Problem solved to me. It's just there enough to be listened to. This is a song that plays onto the guitars as much as a song can do. Now, when we leave for the... This is a rock mixing masterclass. I told you this was nice. I'm fighting these guitars without getting carried away, because if you do get carried away, it's gonna be horrible. So who's next? There's a lead guitar, but there's two main chorus guitars. So I wanna try and remove the chorus, the lead, and feel how the opening acts. So we got one that does sha-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and this one doesn't really work yet. This is G5 rhythm, right? G4 and G2 are all on one side. Why is that? Who's playing in the sides? So we got a problem because we got two lefts. So somebody needs to go right. So the problem might be this one. Let me hear the tracks, these guitars. So the order is wrong. We need maybe this one centered and these two stereo here. Let's try this, because we got to establish, we unfortunately didn't do lower octaves. We needed lower octaves here, and we didn't. So let's try this. Kind of there. I still don't want to hear the lead, because if I put the lead in, I'm gonna cheat. I don't want to cheat. I want to try and use the most I have. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna mute this, and we're gonna use delay L. This one on the right has to have more sustain on the left. Still not EQing and not compressing. Just going on with this. And then this one in the center does not need the right, needs the delay center. Here, and I'm gonna crank it up at whatever, try and 0. So this package here, I think starts around about here. This part, I wanna hear this. Hear how three-dimensional they are. How would it be without the delays? With these three delays. Now the vocals aren't singing here, so we could use some reverb short, maybe, or maybe some reverb long. I have no idea. I'm gonna try this. Hear how much body they're getting? It's also lows, and it's contrary to what a lot of people do. Like, I'm not EQing, compressing yet. I'm just adding the effects I have. I'm not reinventing or adding stuff. So I like it there. Don't forget to transition to it. Otherwise you'll have issues with songs like this because what is a chorus with no lyrics, right? So it's kind of weird, but it has to work. So let's go back to our guitars.
The single step touches my cue.
All right. Now it's time to EQ. Let's try maybe a little bit less reverb, and then let's try and find out this part here, right? I'm gonna start from the lead, actually. I'm gonna try B again. I think I'm gonna like a custom 2, just because it was a little bit softer to my ears. We're gonna try the same drill. We're gonna go, we know that part, where it plays, we're gonna lift it up in the lows, and we're gonna try the 7K, maybe that 8, that trick. It's a lead part, it could work. See, it doesn't have to be loud, but it has to be a little bit more present, right? Maybe 2.8 more than that. Let's see. I don't know. I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing it. I liked it better before. So let's try and compressing it instead. Trust me, it's better before. It's not really doing that much. So again, let's try this. I told you, like this one works better. So what if I invert these two? Now I could EQ just a little bit of life into it, maybe some 500 less. I mean, resetting these, maybe cutting out a 500. Okay, keep going. Did I tell you or not that this was incredibly challenging to do? Now you're hearing why these parts are kind of not gelling together. So is the EQ not working? It's just like any way you touch it, it just doesn't react that, the guitar's not taking shape that much. There's obviously something, I like the compressor, but I think the delay is doing more than the actual part. It's not that part that needs to be changing, it's more the others. So I'm gonna work on the EQs for the lows, like the sustaining parts here. I wanna open pretty much all of them just because it's nice to have them maybe all together. So that's the rhythm, that's the left. And what do we have? G4. Okay, we need the 5 in here. Awesome. Okay, let's try this. of okay. I want to compress them afterwards. I want to use maybe stuff in here. Just want to see if I can get some bit of the lows to show up. And then I'm going to go, whatever, 7K here as well. I don't know. Let's try that because these guitars are dull as hell. Apart from the lower one, like you can't really tell that 7K, so they need so much you can't really feel it, which is nice. What do I want to do here? Maybe try 1/4 in this part, the center one. I think we're fine. I think I'm not gonna touch these. It's more of a matter of compressing them, but I don't wanna do it track by track. I wanna do it maybe on the bus. So let's see if we need a guitar bus for the chorus and one for the verse.
Say my soul, you believe in life and fall and crawl, and you know in every single step touches my cue.
That's what I was talking about. Way too loud, but we're kind of leveling them now. So we gotta go back here where the chorus starts and say, let's try and model this. I told you about this song. I warned you. So I got an idea. I want to compress the acoustic guitars, but I want to use the limiter first, and then I want to compress them. So I want to bring them up a lot. So I probably want to do a parallel just to get them up and do a 50%. And then, so let's go to where these sing. I'm not going to do anything out of context because this is really dangerous. And then we see what works or not in the EQ. Hear what it does, right? We're not gonna use this as it is. We're gonna mix it in the guitars. Right, a dive bomb. All right, we're gonna take this, we're gonna go here, do Camel comp again, and now we go super comp, or maybe comp 2, because I kind of liked. It really brought up a lot of sort of lows. I'm gonna use preamp 1. Let's hear how it sounds. Not a lot of, like I liked 35, you remember, was around 175. A lot of compression, but not that much. And probably I wanna filter down the lows. Let's try this. Keeping the very low vibe of the guitars up. I like it a lot. So now we do Camel EQ because this sounds really like recorded DIs. So we're gonna indulge in having a little bit more of a vintage kind of vibe. I kind of like it a lot. Like I wasn't expecting this, but I have a real one. And so it kind of sounds fine. Now, what I want to do is I want to try what's going on with my mix bus somehow. But before we do this, I also want to EQ the guitar bus, because what we did was nice in terms of giving it sort of a brilliance pack approach, but it's a little bit too much in some areas. So again, no Trident, too wide, but Calrec might do it. So let's try this part. And I need to go to where the sort of chorus was playing, because it's about the whole of the chorus guitars. So I don't want to do it on each of them, just, you know, together. This part, right? This one I don't like. Now, let the tail go down. Have you listened to, like, this is a good sales point. This is pitching real good. 2.8 less, 7K up. This is a sign of very good interacting bands for how things are reshaped. We gave it air, we gave it more detail. We're not fighting the brush of the guitar. We're going against it. We're going towards it, right? That's the 7K part. We're not fighting it. We're like embracing, like, be water, my friend. That's 7K on guitars is be water, my friend. You don't fight it. You just use its energy against itself. You know, it's a Bruce Lee thing. It's awesome. But we carved the 2.8 because we got a lot of that pointy part. And because the Calrec has narrow or broad, and it's more of a variable thing, you can really pinpoint. We could bring in some lows and the high pass and just play with it, but I hope you forgot, I really hope you forgot that we don't have the bass in. You probably didn't forget, but I would really love to hear somebody say, you know what, I almost didn't feel as if the lows were missing because of the bass not being there, you know. And you're also making a huge deal out of the guitars in such a way that I don't really hear a lot of issues with the drums anymore as much as you said in the beginning, you know. I hear some, you know, the snare could be heftier, blah, 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 but it's getting to a sound. It's taking a decision. It's no longer a bunch of tracks recorded super clean by some young, weird Italian dude. It's like, which was me, by the way, you know, for those of you connecting right now, I'm not offending anybody, but it's getting there. It's acquiring that sound. This trick did a lot. Now we gotta work the bass. I would even play the lead guitar part on a parallel compression situation. I'm gonna do it actually here just on insert, because I don't think building a bus is gonna be worth. So let's try and go super comp and try these out just to even these out. Just a little bit of help, because it's like a lead part and it doesn't sustain that much. I could even send it into the parallel vocal. Actually, I'm gonna try this. maybe it's not gonna work, but the vocals have LGV para. This one doesn't sing when the vocals, you know, doesn't play when the vocals are singing and vice versa, so why not? At this point, even reverb could work. Okay, let's bring the bass in. I don't dislike that move. I still think I could have gotten away better with these maybe. I still want to try it. You know, it's a Camel masterclass. Let's try a 50% compression. Here, just this dude. Where is it playing? Should be here, right? Why is everything gone silent? This part. Here. I want you. Oh, it's maybe this plugin now. What am I doing wrong? All right. Maybe comp 2. This one. Now let's bring it up in like a mix 50% sort of. I really love this. It's got that more bite. I think it's better than the solution of having the compressor here. Let's try and hear it. It's without bass still. Okay, now there's things you're gonna hear that are still in need of work, right? And this is how the acoustics get in. This is all automation stuff. Don't touch the EQs and stuff you worked on because it's gonna destroy your mix. Let's try and do the bass. Bass is fine where it is. I'm just gonna go on the bus here and I'm gonna go Camel EQ again and Camel Comp for sure, because why not? Because why not? So let's try A and let's try, I want to try cast like some line, whatever. What would be a number for bass? 4 for some reason is bass in my head. I'm gonna EQ into the compressor. I want to do it this way. Let me try comp 2 because I've loved on instruments, and then preamp 1. It's insane. You can't really hear it. I'm gonna try 3, be a little bit more of a feather touch. This one we should almost save. I'm gonna make a preset for it. I'm gonna call it Alberto's Rock Bass. Boom. But now I'm gonna EQ into it because I wanna emphasize some tracks. Now this would really need some cleaning Maybe the DI has a little bit of a resonance factor. We're gonna try and do it, but these, we're forcing ourselves to use just one plugin, obviously, but I would go find resonances because it wasn't that high quality of a DI. But let's see what happens. Hear how resonant the bass is? I think it's the DI that's doing this. So let's try and hear this by itself because it's ruining the vibe. Some notes are very loud, some notes are super soft. We might need to limit before we compress. Here, the lower notes clearly has some resonance and it's a little bit rushed of a bass as well, but it's kind of rock and roll. I don't think the amp has it. This one definitely does. So, Camel to the test. Let's try and find where this resonance lives and kill it. No visualizers, because we're man of faith. Let's try narrow here. I'm thinking it's usually like, this is a really wide one. Starts from 0.5, goes to 7.2. So this band here, you can really use to find where the issues are. I'm thinking something like around 500 I also want to remove, but okay, like 50 down to 70 down, it's a pattern somehow. Let's try if I can crank the shelf up to 3 or something, just to sort of rebalance this. Kind of there. Let's try and see if I pick it up, like I'm recutting and rebalancing. This is awesome. Hear how the bass does that, like it's a bubbly bass. You remember when I said that at the beginning? It's got these insane transient and extreme lows. I love this so much from the Calrec line, and the EQ I have down there does it the same on lows. It pushes air like a lot. It almost sounds like with the 18 or 21 it would do it more. But let's do it before and after, because the DI is nothing close to what we had before. You cannot mix that one DI if you don't fix it first. I don't want to use the lines and stuff because it's more of a surgical stuff. You hear how much it changed? And yes, it's a drier sound, but you know, how about the effect, the amp? Obviously this one doesn't work, but how about we sort of make something out of it just to be complementary, right? It's no longer that scooped, right? Kind of like it. Kind of like it. Let's try some guitar-ish presence. Right. Without the bass amp EQ. All right, now we try and compress this. Sounds fine where it was. I'm obviously saving all the time. Let me try with guitars and bass, and that's it. Okay, we're gonna launch another EQ. We're gonna use it to blend with the guitars because there's not enough dialogue between guitars and bass. And also because the guitars need to be changed as well. They weren't made thinking about the bass, right? $240, right? $240, what do we have here? Do we have a $270? Somebody offers more? Let's try this. Carve this part to let the bass come up. $300, $270. It's gonna be great because we're making room for snare and bass. I actually like it a little bit more on guitars. It just blends better. Now, drums. Okay. Bass is a tad loud sometimes. I'm gonna keep going, limiting this with, I'm gonna try super limiter. Why not? We're gonna go fast. Maybe not that fast, and just a little bit. Like it's a night and day. It doesn't exist on this super limb. It just don't look at the meters because you see -6 but it sounds the ticket. Like now I can really go a little bit lower in volume and we have that, you know, I could even go maybe 90% dry. I don't want to touch it, but you could try dry and wet a little bit, but this one sounds nice. How about, there's no mix bus here, okay? There's no mix bus whatsoever. So this time I'm gonna do it last, whatever, I don't care. And I meant to do some EQ kick, EQ for the kick and EQ for the snare. I don't want to retouch everything, but you cannot not EQ and compress snare and kick with this much rock level now. So let's try B for whatever reason. I don't think it's gonna, like I would go A, but let's force us to do, maybe on the kick we need the 60. Haha, real nice, right? Real nice. What I would do is I would do another EQ, and I would place the A version of it, maybe just the lows, because these 200 something, I'm thinking there's some cardboard here I want to remove, and I can't do it with the Trident. It's too wide. Right, vintage kick. I don't want too like a bright metal kind of thing, not too pingy. Just like you feel it more than you hear it, right? Now snare. This has to be A. There's no control over those frequencies for what I need to do. I need to like do a lot more than it seems. Look at what I like. There's not, I don't even know how many clicks that is from 0. There's a little bit of 330, a little bit of 430, just by coincidence, but sounds big, like more real. 430 is a frequency you would remove on real drums because it's always resonating along A. It's just the note you're tuning your snare close to probably. But here it sounds so fake that I want that 400. I didn't even notice until it was up. I was like, oh, it's so alive. And 2.2, just a little bit more point. I don't want more air. I don't want anything else. Let's do a before and after for kick and snare, because that's gonna be cool. I can do even better. I can remove some highs from the snare because it's a little bit obnoxious. Again, too samply. I don't know. It's just like you can't really do it with like a non-surgical kind of thing. Maybe 1K, it's a felt thing. So it's, if you can cheat your ear to do it, it might follow along. But it's a sample thing I really don't quite like. I mean, this goes a long way, like a long way. Wow. It really worked. For some reason, take it out, that 1K just brought it back to whatever kind of weird sound thing. I don't even want to compress this. It's fine. Let's try some mix bus EQ. I don't even know if my EQ back there is gonna work now. Let's try this with like everybody. Maybe that part where there's like the dive here, dive bombing. See, it's there, but it's a little bit too much, right? I wish I had a mix knob here. It's a little bit pointy now. Let me try and lower the volume here. That could work. Maybe it's a volume thing.
You know, you never touches make you know.
Maybe a custom mic too was kind of flangy.
You know, you never sing a step, touches make you know.
So now we're listening to the real one, the real dude, which is minus 3.44 down. And when I disengage this yellow light, we're actually listening to the real EQ, like to that one. I haven't done the synths, so bear with me. I'm gonna try and do some compression here. Then we've really done all of the tracks. I can't believe we completely, like I have it with this song, I know. So it's a personal thing now. Let's try this, and then I'm gonna keep this on.
You know, you never sing a step, touches make you know. What are the methods so low?
I like where this stands. I just cannot fathom the fact that now the guitars are getting sort of like, I think we tracked them in a way that the second chorus feels thinner than the last one for absolutely no reason. So you would need to sort of counterweight this. Let me try and go. This is so, it's so good but then we're gonna measure this. So let me try and sort of, what did I use here? The Calrec again. So why not? Let's do Camel EQ again. Pillow some Trident down here. I'm not using these many preamps, you see, because otherwise it would just sum up to oblivion. So
What are the methods so low?
So because I've mixed with all this stuff, when I turn on the mix bus EQ, which was the first thing I had done, it kind of sounds a little bit more, it wasn't the final chorus thin, it's how I did the mixing there. What matters is, however, that I've done, and I'm turning on a lot of plugins in here, I've done the same thing on the Camel. And I want to let you hear what I've done here so that you can sort of pinpoint that, and we're gonna fix it here. What I can do is we can listen to the real stuff when it's all in blue, the green one, and we can listen to the fake stuff like Camel when I engage this. So blue means on, and I'm gonna play this part and keep alternating the two. Let's hear how they sound.
What are the methods so low?
I gotta say they're different in the way that like Camel sounds a little bit harsher. I guarantee you I matched the curves as much as I could, but that doesn't mean anything as proven by this example. However, they both have this sort of like healthy way of pushing the transients in the lows more than the transients in the highs. So they become tamed in the highs and they become a little bit more real in the lows. I really like this. So why don't we make a hybrid out of it and we try Camel Comp as a mix bus compressor. So I'm gonna go back into whatever part of the song we have left, like this one, and I'm just gonna play it and just find a bus compressor setup that works. I might want to go Trident first. I don't know. Maybe we're gonna try a limiter afterwards. I don't know, because it's not a brick wall limiter anyway, but just to give it more vibe. I'm curious because I never used bus compressor that late in the mix. So, you know, it's a new thing for me. But I would envision something mild, but you never know. It's there, but I don't quite hear it as a mix bus compressor. I don't quite like it yet. I'm gonna try and go super wide on the attack and sort of like maybe 3-to-1. I kind of get it, and I have to find the right spot for the sidechain. So for now, I'm just gonna keep it at 0. Maybe even the release, I don't quite think it works that fast. I don't know. I want to save this as a bus compressor setup. Like, this is kind of rare. I wasn't thinking this would. I always try Alberto's mix bus comp. It really translates a lot of energy. This comp too really has this aggression factor. Like, it sounds so compelling, and now the acoustic guitars don't come out too much, and now the synths are not too bright, and there's that shredded guitar part that I really like, the dive bombs. Obviously we missed a lot of that, but the drums are coming out a little bit too much, and for that reason I want to try and limit this, and we're going to try super limit because we haven't tried it yet. I want it incredibly fast. I want to try and see if it captures that little bit of a snare part. In the very end, I heard some transients of the snares were poking a little bit too much. Could be a snare thing, could be a drum kit thing. I want to try a drum kit scenario here. I would usually that's not the plugin I always use, so I'm experimenting. Not too bad, but maybe. Let's try a little bit of a maybe faster schmod, or like maybe a longer release. Oh, well, this really wants to be, let's try a limiter, like a normal one. Now I back off with the mix. Maybe, I'm not too persuaded, but... Okay. Maybe a little bit more volume here. And now I'm gonna hear it very low volume for me, but not for you. So I'm gonna lower it down here. We're gonna try -18. Let's hear the volumes where they are.
And I hold my tongue, say my soul. You believe in life and full and cool, and you know in every single step touches my cue.
And I'm back. So this is sort of a re-listening at low volume. Sometimes you see there's like a couple adjustments after so many hours and stuff. But I mean, mission accomplished from where it started with the effects I've done. I mean, I would never mix with just this one plugin. I would never mix with just maybe Lemon and Ebony as reverbs and stuff. And this song is the enigma machine of mixing, because you just look at it and you're like, looks nice, but what does this do? And when you find out what that does, it's like, that's not even a good thing. It was designed for a bad reason. So this song had all good intents and purposes, but because it was tracked this sort of analytically and like with lower budget stuff and the time, it's all there, but it doesn't want to blend very well. So it's a great scenario for testing something that I trust, but I've never really set my ears on. So it was appealing. We did Camel EQ, we did Camel compressor, and we did Camel pre, which I haven't tried by itself, right? But we tried there. So we load up a lot of them. We still have plenty buffer to go. So between Ebony and Lemon, we're also using like 7, 8 instances, of them all together. So that was a lot of stuff. And I gotta say, it sounds great. And it moved this song to get a sound. And that sound isn't too vintage, isn't too modern. It's in between some nice vibe. So I think the mission was a success. This thing was really cool. I have some presets that I saved because it's kind of fiddly where you have to work on. I think the best settings I had were in the buses. For example, this drum setting here and the drum bass setting here as well. We haven't touched the toms, we haven't touched the overheads. Again, the meat is there, but there's a lot of samples being drenched in. It's hard to get away from that sort of sampled perfection, and I kind of don't like that because it's like 30% real, 70% fake drums. But it went a long way. There's a lot of vibe. The limiter and the compressors are not 100% limiting. They're analogish sounding. They're not breathing that much. I've had more issues with other Acustica plugins sometimes in the time domain. They're kind of dependable, but most importantly, I think the highlight is the EQ is definitely cool. With the B range, you get a lot of tone, but you can't fix anything. And with the Calrec, you have a lot of dialing things in, and you can really get surgical, and it still sounds very modern and aggressive somehow. Yeah. The Comp 2 in the dynamic range is definitely my favorite. So if I had to do some sort of fine-tuning where I want to stay clean and get some heft, Comp 1, Super Comp, Lim, they're nice, but Comp 2 is just great. So in a session that has maybe all sorts of plugins, this bundle really shines for Comp 2 and the EQ definitely. The preamps are very colored. Sometimes they're not about the color of the harmonics and stuff. It's like the placement of the sound in the field. And they helped. We had some cases in which they helped. Maybe it will get a lot more different if you just place them randomly on all of your 24, 32 tracks. So sometimes we had preamps in other videos that were like, kind of subtle. These ones really sound the ticket, like they really had heft and stuff. So, maybe you want to use some for, a vocal track or a lead guitar or a very sustainy part, or maybe a bass bus. But some others are kind of more a free ticket to say, I'm going to bounce these 24 channels and then mix. These ones I would kind of listen to first. I got to be honest, because they bring in so much. But the limiter is great. It punches so much stuff. I think this one that we did for the vocal, that was actually Comp 1. So it sounded like a tight limiter because, is it this one? I think I had, no, right? Oh, no. Hold on. I was wrong. So yeah, this one, that's the vocal limiter. That was real nice. So 0.1, super fast, place the vocals there, no issues whatsoever. This song will never fly if you don't automate it. So this one's for posterity sake. It's the canvas is ready. Now you need to really move stuff around. Now it's time to really get musical on it. But until you do this work, it's gonna be impossible. So a lot of maybe VCA's movement, some guitars come in later, and then you need to maybe tame them. Some throws for delays for sure. This is a song that relies a lot on throws, where you say matters of love. Then you just crank that delay. All that stuff is automation based, has nothing to do with Camel. So just bear in mind, if you don't automate stuff and you keep mixing thinking you gotta mix better, you're gonna fail because you need to automate stuff. So what is there left to say? I was saying, right? I think this suite really works well for a lot of scenarios. It's you know, not a wide range of plugins, it's just 3 of them, but there's a lot in there because the Calrec, the A and the B range, the B, are so different and the limiters and compressors follow along. So you have 2 very broad colors that somehow bring a lot of a modern, aggressive, not too old, not too new, because it has a vintage vibe, but it's a very, very poetic one in a way without being so overt like Neve, right? So they dialogue well together. Calrec and Trident, I would have never thought that they had this much in common. They actually make a great super console somehow. So if you enjoyed this, remember this live stream was possible because of my Patreon. So go check it out. The link's down here. There's just €9 per month that will take you to hundreds of hours already of videos like this that, you know, face jazz, rock, blues, electronic music, industrial stuff, whatever. I don't even remember how many genres we touched on. A lot of the songs come from the patrons themselves. We do mixed monthly stuff, you know, every couple months, 3 months. We don't, you know, we do it, then we review it. We do it all together. There's no prizes. There's a lot of discounts as well with famous brands, including Acoustic Audio. But it's the learning factor and it's the educational vibe of being together. There's over 40 people in there already that, you know, on a daily basis, they discuss stuff, plugins, combinations of work, you know, they give each other feedback. It's real nice. So if this was possible, it's because of those people supporting me. Think about it, it's just €9 per month. It's gonna help out first and foremost my assistant in doing the video editing job, and obviously then myself, because all of this time and all of the editing she does, it helps out what I pay up to her. So as usual, thank you very much. It was a blast mixing this. Also this very old song that I recorded 13 years ago with a lot of issues that I hope you learned not to redo. So I hope it makes your future music not as kind of good, but a lot more better, which is not English, than what I had 13 years ago. Thank you very much for following me. Thank you very much for your support on Patreon. We'll see each other soon. Ciao.